I've built my career on other people's fear. Not in a cruel way, in a smart way. My name is Anna. I flip houses for a living. Abandoned properties, foreclosures, auction deals no one wants to touch. I see what others don't. Potential under dust, value under bad paint, profit under panic. And that's exactly what happened with the Whitmore Street house. It came up at auction on a rainy Thursday afternoon. No interior photos, only exterior shots. Beige siding, plain roof, slightly outdated windows, nothing special. The description was short, too short. Estate sale, sold as is. My competitors were there, of course, the usual circle of investors who think they can smell risk from a mile away. They circled the listing like sharks, and then they backed off. No bidding war, no excitement. Why? Because the house had a reputation. One of them leaned over to me before the auction started. "You're not seriously considering Whitmore, are you?" he asked. "Why not?" I smiled. He shrugged. Owner died alone, no family, utilities cut off for years. People say the inside is weird. Weird. That's not a financial term. That's fear talking. The auction opened. Silence. A few half-hearted bids. I waited. Then I raised my paddle. The hammer dropped. Just like that, Whitmore Street was mine, and everyone else looked relieved. That should have been my first warning. The first time I stepped inside, I almost laughed, because it wasn't a mess. It was perfect. Hardwood floors polished, walls freshly painted, modern kitchen, granite countertops. Someone had renovated this place, carefully, professionally, but no one had lived in it. The air felt still, pressurized, like a sealed container opened after years. I walked through each room slowly. Living room, dining room, 2 bedrooms upstairs. Everything's staged, but untouched. And that's when I felt it, that subtle shift, like the house was listening. I told myself that was stupid. Houses don't listen, but they do hide things, and I'm very good at finding them. That evening, I stayed late to inspect the foundation. I brought a flashlight and a notebook. I always document everything before renovation. That's when I noticed something. In the kitchen, one cabinet felt wrong. The alignment was slightly off, not enough for an amateur to see, but enough for me. I pressed on the back panel. It moved, just slightly. My pulse slowed, because I love this part, the moment before a secret reveals itself. I removed the panel carefully. Behind it, concrete, but not structural, a sealed concrete section, like a patch over something else, and carved into the surface, faint but deliberate, a symbol, 3 interlocking circles. I stared at it longer than I should have. That's when the floor beneath me vibrated, very slightly. I froze. It wasn't traffic. The house sat alone on a quiet street. It wasn't wind. It felt mechanical, like something deep below had just powered on. I stood there in silence. Then I heard it, a sound that did not belong in an empty house, a faint, hollow echo from beneath the kitchen. I swallowed, and instead of walking away, I smiled. Because if there's something under this house, then I just bought a lot more than square footage, and whatever was down there, no one else wanted to find it. I didn't call anyone. That probably says something about me. A smarter investor would have brought a contractor, a structural engineer, maybe even the police. But I've learned something in this business. If you hesitate, you lose leverage. And whatever was under that kitchen, it was mine. I knelt down and ran my fingers across the concrete patch again. It wasn't original foundation. The texture was slightly newer, smoother. Someone had sealed something, carefully, deliberately. I drove home that night, but I didn't sleep. My brain kept replaying the vibration under my feet, the faint echo, the carved symbol. By morning, curiosity had completely beaten caution. I came back with tools, a pry bar, a drill, protective gloves. The house was quiet again, innocent. Sunlight through the kitchen window made everything look normal, almost too normal. I closed the door behind me and locked it. Then I started breaking the concrete. It took 40 minutes. The sound echoed strangely through the house, hollow, as if the space beneath wasn't solid at all. When the final chunk cracked loose, cool air rushed upward. Not stale, not damp, cool, conditioned. My heart started beating faster. I widened the opening, and then I saw it. Metal, a hatch, industrial grade, thick steel with a recessed handle and a keypad beside it. A keypad, under a suburban kitchen. I just stared at it for a full minute. No dust on the surface, no rust. Someone had maintained this recently. I ran my fingers across the keypad. It lit up, blue, alive. I stepped back. For the first time since buying the house, I felt something that wasn't excitement. I felt watched. I scanned the kitchen. Nothing moved. No cameras that I could see. But this was too intentional. I shouldn't have known the code. And yet, my hand hovered over the keypad. 6 digits. The symbol carved in the concrete. 3 interlocking circles. 3, 3, 3. My stomach tightened. I typed 666666. Nothing. I exhaled, slightly relieved. Then I looked at the auction documents I had folded in my back pocket. The property ID number. It ended in 0666. That felt too specific. I tried 066666. The keypad beeped, green, and the hatch unlocked with a heavy metallic click. My pulse exploded in my ears. I lifted the hatch slowly. Beneath it, a staircase, concrete, clean, wide, descending into darkness, but not pitch black. At the bottom of the staircase, I could see a faint line of warm light, not flickering, steady, like someone was home. I swallowed, and I did something incredibly stupid. I went down. Each step echoed in a way that told me this space was massive, bigger than the house above. At the bottom of the staircase, the light source revealed itself. Recessed LED panels along the ceiling, automatic, motion activated. They turned on as I stepped forward, and that's when I saw it. The first room. It wasn't a basement, it was a facility. Walls lined with shelves, perfectly organized food supplies, canned goods, vacuum-sealed packages, expiration dates years in the future, water filtration systems humming quietly in one corner, industrial-grade air circulation, solar battery units along one wall. This wasn't survivalist hobby stuff. This was engineered. I walked further in, and the space opened. Hallway, doors on both sides, each labeled storage, medical, hydro, comm. I laughed nervously. Who builds a bunker like this under a suburban home? I stepped into the medical room. Hospital-grade equipment, cabinets full of supplies, IV stands, a small operating table. Unused, spotless. I felt my excitement return. Do you understand what this meant? This wasn't a liability. This was a gold mine. A 666 square meter underground bunker fully equipped for long-term living. My mind raced with numbers. The resale value, the uniqueness, the headline, luxury home with private survival complex. This could make my career. Then I saw the next door. It wasn't labeled. It was thicker than the others, and it was locked. Unlike the hatch upstairs, this door didn't have a keypad. It had a manual wheel lock. Old-fashioned, heavy. I touched it. Cold. I turned the wheel slowly. It resisted, then gave, with a deep, grinding sound. The door opened inward. The air that escaped was different. Thicker. Heavier. It smelled metallic, and something else. Something organic. Something that made my throat tighten instinctively. I stepped inside. The room was larger than the others, circular, concrete walls reinforced with steel. In the center of the room, a stone structure, like a well, but enclosed, covered with a metal grate, and carved in the concrete floor around it, the same symbol, 3 interlocking circles. My heart was no longer racing from excitement, it was racing from something else. There were chairs arranged around the well, 6 of them, facing inward. I stepped closer, the smell intensified, and I realized what it reminded me of. Not rot, not decay, but something ancient, like deep earth disturbed after too long. I knelt beside the grate, and that's when I heard it. Not mechanical, not pipes, not water, a faint movement from below, very far below. My skin prickled. This wasn't just a bunker. This wasn't just survival prep. This was built for something else, something intentional, something ritualistic, and I was alone underground with it. I slowly stood up, and that's when the lights flickered. Just once, then stabilized, then flickered again. I froze because I hadn't moved. The motion sensors had already activated. The lights shouldn't be reacting. A low hum began to build somewhere deeper in the bunker, and I realized something terrifying. The system had just registered me, and somewhere, something had responded.
The hum didn't stop. It grew steadier, lower, like a distant engine idling somewhere behind the walls. I stood perfectly still in the circular room, staring at the grate over the well. Nothing moved, nothing visibly changed, and yet the air felt different, alive. I forced myself to breathe slowly. Think, Anna, think. This is electrical, automated, backup generators kicking in, sensors reacting. It's explainable. Everything is explainable. I stepped back into the hallway. The LED strips along the ceiling flickered once more, and then stabilized fully. Too fully. The lighting was no longer reacting to motion. It was just on. All of it. I walked toward the room labeled COMM, communication. That wasn't something you put in a random prepper bunker unless you were planning for long-term isolation. Or coordination. The door was unlocked. Inside, the temperature dropped noticeably. Servers. 3 tall racks of them, all running. Soft blue lights blinking steadily. I felt my heartbeat shift from fear to something sharper. Focus. These weren't old. These weren't abandoned. The system was active. There was a desk in the corner with 3 monitors, all black, until I touched the mouse. The screens woke up instantly. Cameras. 16 feeds. Different angles, different houses. My stomach flipped. Suburban kitchens, garages, living rooms, backyards. I recognized one of the exterior shots immediately. Whitmore Street. My house. From across the road. The footage was live, which meant the other houses were live too. This wasn't just a bunker. It was a network, a hidden infrastructure buried under multiple properties. I leaned closer to the screen. One feed showed an empty dining room. Another showed a staircase. Another showed movement. A woman walking through her hallway, unaware. The camera angle was from a ceiling corner, hidden. I stepped back slowly. My brain began connecting pieces. Auction properties, estate sales, houses no one wanted, because something was underneath them, because someone had built a system that required discretion, and I had just purchased one node of it. A notification popped up on the screen. Unauthorized access, Node 6 activated. Node 6, that was me. I felt cold from the inside out. Another line appeared. Primary link attempting sync. I didn't understand what that meant until the monitor shifted, all 16 feeds rearranged, and one camera zoomed in on me, standing in the room. Someone had turned on an internal camera. I slowly looked up. There, in the upper corner, a small black lens, watching. I didn't wave, I didn't speak. I just stared at it. And then I said quietly, "You built this." The hum deepened, as if responding. Another notification flashed. "Incoming call, primary operator." My throat tightened. The screen shifted again. A video window opened. Static. Then clarity. A man, late 60s, clean haircut, calm eyes, sitting in a room that looked exactly like this one, but not here. He studied me with unsettling composure. "So," he said evenly, "you're not the executor." My voice felt small in that room. "I bought the house." A pause. His expression didn't change. "That was not intended." I gathered. Silence stretched between us. I expected threats, anger. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "Tell me," he said evenly, "what do you think this is?" I glanced at the monitors. "A surveillance system, a coordinated underground bunker network, possibly designed for emergency continuity." He nodded slightly. "Good," he said. "You're observant." "And you're running it," I replied. He leaned back. "For now." "For now," I repeated. He studied me carefully. Whitmore was designated Node 6, part of a redundancy grid. 6 properties, 6 underground facilities, independent but connected. "For what?" I asked. "Infrastructure collapse," he said calmly. "Civil unrest. Grid failure. Long-term survival for selected individuals." Selected. "Who were the individuals?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "That depends." The room felt smaller. "And the well?" I asked. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Curiosity. "You've opened the chamber?" he asked. "Yes." A pause. "That was not part of the residential function." "That's not an answer." He considered me for a moment. "It is a secondary system." "For what?" He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he said something that made my pulse spike. "Tell me, Anna," he said, "are you frightened?" The fact that he knew my name didn't surprise me. The cameras explained that. "No," I lied. He nodded slowly. "Good," he said, "because fear makes people destroy things they don't understand." "And you think I'll destroy this?" "He thinks," he replied calmly, "you might try to sell it." I didn't answer, because he was right. He leaned forward slightly. "You have something extraordinary beneath your property, something engineered with precision and purpose." "Purpose that involves surveillance of private homes," I shot back. He didn't deny it. "The network ensures preparedness. Information is survival." "That's not what this feels like." The monitors flickered again. One of the external feeds shifted, and I saw something that made my chest tighten. A black SUV had just pulled up outside Whitmore Street. My house. 2 men stepped out. They weren't carrying tools. They were carrying cases. The man on the screen watched my reaction carefully. "You were not meant to trigger activation," he said calmly. "But since you have..." My voice dropped. "You're sending people to assess the integrity of the node." "That's my property," I said. He tilted his head slightly. "For now." The call disconnected. The hum intensified briefly, then stabilized. I stood alone in the underground facility, staring at the live feed of 2 strangers walking toward my front door. And for the first time since I bought the house, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about flipping a property. This wasn't about profit. This was about ownership, control, and a system built to outlive governments, and I had accidentally inserted myself into its center. The men reached the front porch. One of them tried the handle. Locked. He glanced at the other. Then one of them looked directly at the exterior camera, as if he knew I was watching, and smiled.
The men didn't knock. They didn't try to break in either. They simply stood on my porch, calm, patient, waiting. I watched them through the exterior camera feed in the communications room. My house above looked small now, fragile, like a shell protecting something far larger. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Unknown number. I answered. "Open the door, Miss Anna," the older man's voice said calmly through the line. "This does not need to become adversarial." I felt something inside me shift. Fear, yes, but also something else. Ownership. "You built this under my house," I replied. "You monitored other properties. You created a private surveillance grid." "It was not meant for you," he said. "But it is now," I answered. Silence. Then softly, "You do not understand what you are interfering with." "Then explain it," I said. He paused, then surprised me. "Very well." The monitors flickered again, and one feed zoomed into the circular chamber, the well, the grate. "The chamber beneath that structure," he continued, "is not a well in the traditional sense. It's a geothermal extraction shaft." I blinked. "A heat source?" "Yes." He continued calmly. "The entire underground network is self-sustaining. Power, water filtration, air circulation, all independent of the grid. Each node supports long-term habitation. In the event of collapse, selected individuals relocate underground." "And the surveillance?" I pressed. "Threat detection, environmental monitoring, behavioral pattern analysis." "You were watching people," I said. "We were studying stability," he corrected. I let out a short, sharp laugh. "That's not how consent works." He ignored that. "The geothermal shaft," he continued, "extends deep into a thermal reservoir. It provides heat and energy. The odor you noticed is mineral discharge, sulfuric traces, not death." I remembered the smell. Earthy, metallic, ancient. He wasn't lying about that. "But the chairs?" I asked. "A command chamber," he said, "for planning, coordination." I stared at the screen. 6 properties, 6 underground facilities, a parallel infrastructure, and I had access to Node 6. Above me, I heard a sound, a faint click. The men at the front door had stopped moving. One of them stepped back, and then something unexpected happened. They walked away, back to the SUV. They didn't force entry, they didn't threaten, they left. The phone line stayed open. "So you see," the older man said calmly, "we do not operate emotionally." "Then what do you want?" I asked. "You have 2 options." I leaned against the desk, heart steady now. "Go on." "You sign a non-disclosure agreement. We purchase the property from you at triple market value. You walk away with a small fortune." "And option 2? "You become the new operator of Node 6. I went very still. "You want me to run this?" "You are intelligent," he said. "You found the system within 24 hours. Most buyers would have sold blindly or called contractors." "Why me?" "Because," he said quietly, "the network requires individuals who think in long-term value." I looked at the monitors again. 16 feeds, 6 homes, unaware families, normal lives. The power in this room felt enormous, too enormous. "What happened to the previous owner?" I asked. A pause. "He completed his term," he replied. "That's vague. It is sufficient." I thought about the auction, the way no one wanted the house, the way the interior had been renovated but untouched. He had prepared the node for transition, and I had interrupted it. "You don't need surveillance on civilians. You don't need secrecy across neighborhoods." The older man didn't respond immediately. "You are correct slowly, in a stable world." "And we're not in one?" I asked. "Look around you," he replied calmly. Another silence. Then I did something he didn't expect. I reached for the keyboard. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Assessing value," I replied. I began navigating the system. I wasn't a hacker, but I was good at systems, and this one was built like a business. Redundancies, fail-safes, layers. There was a master control layer, hidden, protected, but visible enough. "Node 6 has independent override capability," I said slowly. "Yes," he confirmed. "For maintenance," he added. "Or for restructuring," I said. I located the internal routing panel. The geothermal shaft was the true power source. The well wasn't symbolic, it was structural. If Node 6 disconnected from the main network, the others would lose redundancy. A risk, but not collapse. You can't be serious. His voice sharpened slightly for the first time. I bought this property legally, I said calmly. Everything under it is mine. You don't understand the scale of this system. I understand leverage, I replied. I hovered over the disconnect protocol. You want secrecy, I said. I want legitimacy. Silence. I convert Node 6 into a private, legal emergency shelter, remove all civilian surveillance feeds, disconnect from your grid, keep the geothermal system, keep the self-sustaining infrastructure. And in exchange? I asked. I don't expose the existence of the network, I said evenly. A long pause. I imagined him calculating risk versus benefit, exposure versus adaptation. You would dismantle our integration, he said. I would modernize it, I replied. The man exhaled slowly. You are negotiating from a position you barely comprehend. No, I said quietly. I'm negotiating from ownership. The room felt still. Then finally, proceed, he said. I didn't hesitate. I initiated the override. The monitors flickered. The other property feeds disappeared one by one. 16, 8, 4, 2. Then only Whitmore Street remained. The hum beneath the bunker shifted, stabilized, independent. Node 6 was now a standalone system. The call ended without goodbye. I stood alone in the communications room. No external feeds, no outside control, just my property, my bunker, my geothermal well, my system. I walked back to the circular chamber one more time. The grate over the shaft felt different now, less ominous, more powerful. It wasn't death I smelled, it was earth, heat, energy, possibility. I laughed softly to myself. Everyone at that auction thought Whitmore Street was a liability, a weird estate, a risk. Instead, I had acquired a 666 square meter, self-sustaining underground facility with independent power and water supply, the kind of property billionaires quietly commission, and I got it for a foreclosure price. 3 months later, the listing went live, not for sale, but for something new. Whitmore Resilience Retreat, private sustainable living facility, legal, transparent, exclusive. No surveillance, no secrecy, just innovation. The waiting list filled in 2 weeks. And sometimes, late at night, when I stand in the circular chamber beneath the house, I think about the man on the screen, about the other nodes, about the network still out there, connected, watching, but not here. Because under Whitmore Street, I don't just flip houses anymore. I build futures. And this time, I chose to keep it.